welcome to Resourceful Women, where we talk with women in the mining industry. Today I'm joined by Katrina Jeremick'ca, and we were just having a laugh before we started about how to properly say her last name. So, Katrina, I will start by asking you a when question. When did you get into mining, and how did you get your start in the mining industry?
I got into mining shortly after high school. I had applied for a few positions. I didn't qualify for a lot of them. So I did get selected and offered for a housekeeping position with Tlicho Investment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how that was my first experience in the mining industry.
So how did you, that was one of your first jobs, right? You went right into mining.
Mm-hmm.
So did you, housekeeping, that means you were at site.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like showing up for or first of all, what was it like getting the job?
I guess it was a bit of excitement to get out of the community to go work.
Okay.
And a bit of nervousness, I guess.
Yeah.
Not so much about the role, I guess, but more so the location.
What's life going to be like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, I guess, the feelings that I had for my first experience working at camp.
Had you worked in other jobs? Like when you were in high school, did you work at the store or anything like that?
Yeah, I worked at the school. I worked at the community hall as a cashier. So I did start working very early.
You were a youngin'.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom was a single mom. So try to do what I could to help and not be a financial burden.
You were going to cover some of your own expenses.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So that was available in the community. And if you wanted to do more and do the site work, did you start with 2 and 2 rotation?
Yes.
2 weeks in, 2 weeks out?
I did that. That was the regular rotation schedule. I think I did it only for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a grade 12 graduate. And after I think it was the third rotation, I decided that the position was just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do more with my life. So resigned from that position and applied for school, but that didn't work out as well. Yeah, just a long story short, just before the program that I applied to started, my best friend at the time had committed suicide.
Oh,
and
that's hard on the heart.
It was really hard. And I didn't get to start the program right away.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did go, I registered. The instructor plain out and said, she's a very fast instructor. She didn't even give me a chance to try to catch up. She said, there's no way I'm going to slow down for one student. And
how welcoming.
Yeah. And that was for the teacher education program that I had enrolled in and got accepted for. So then I tried to stay going to school.
In education or in something else?
I went to administration.
Okay.
Yeah, but that had already started as well. And they said the same thing, but they would give me a chance to try to catch up. And
so that's even though it happened a long time ago, that's really irritating.
It is
to hear because what we try to do now in the industry is help people over those humps, not just build the obstacle even higher.
Yeah.
I'd say too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
Were you offered a later start or anything like that? Or it was just
no,
tough luck, kid?
Yeah. It was tough luck, kid.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that was your first hurdle?
That was my first hurdle. I was alone, my first time away from home by myself in a new town, Fort Smith.
Okay.
And just with the recent loss of my best friend, being alone, and I did try to, like, I started with the course there, I think a couple of weeks, and I was like, no, it's just too much. They started before me. I was thankful for that instructor to give me the opportunity to try, but I just was not in the right mindset, dealing with everything back home and just not
Yeah.
wanting to be alone during that time, I guess.
Yeah, that's a lot. One thing that people might not understand is the community you were living in. How big was that community?
At the time, it was 250,
Right.
I think.
So that is a very, very small community.
Mhm.
And even now, whenever anyone in a community passes away, it's a big deal. Everybody knows them. It changes the dynamic. And when it's tragic because she took her life, I think that's, even more upsetting to everyone because the community lost one of their young people. And I know that that's the last thing that anyone wants to see happen. So that's a lot to deal with when so what, you were then 17, maybe 18?
18, 19.
That's still a kid. But now that we're both grown, I mean, I know when we were 18 and 19, we probably felt quite grown. But when you look back on it, you're like, you're a kid, right? At 18 and 19, you're still a kid working in kid ways and trying to build your life. It's a lot to go through.
Very much. Yeah.
So when you said that the 3 months was enough, when you tell it in hindsight, it sounds like that 3 months was like, I don't want to be doing this for my whole life. So it was a little bit of a nudge as well. But
yes, it was.
But you got to see the site, see what it was like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you able in that time, were you able to make friends with people there? Like, was it easy?
It was, well, it's very close knit because it's remote, and you meet people during your work hours as well as after your work hours, right? Playing at the gym or just going to the gym. TV room, if you're a smoker, you meet people in the smoke
Go out in the area into the cloudy room. Yeah.
It wasn't hard meeting people, and you would see people from your community there as well, and that helped as well.
That's good. So. And what about language? Because Tlicho is your first language, English is your second language. I mean, I know when I was in other places and it wasn't English speaking, when I got back to a place where English was spoken, it was kind of a relief.
Yeah.
So is it a relief when you're at site to have people speaking Tlicho where you can, understand them and speak your first language?
Yeah. The group of coworkers I had, the majority were Tlicho.
Okay.
So it was very, it was easy, nice. Right? To adapt, and just having community members there and other positions around the mine site also helped you to adapt.
That's awesome. So when your schooling was happening at the worst time that you'd ever had in your life until then, that would have been a lot to overcome. And so did the admin work out or not? You didn't keep with that?
I couldn't, I wasn't in the right mind frame to fight for catching up, and like, I didn't have that drive.
Yeah.
So I ended up going home, working at the school as an EA, as a sub at first, and then on-call EA, I guess, education assistant.
Yep.
So I did that for a bit, and then I met Christy and Sarah.
Okay.
They came to the community because one of their employees was getting married, and Christy asked what I was doing, and I just told her I'm a casual worker at the local school, and she asked if I would be interested in working in Yellowknife at the IND management office as an admin. She said they were looking for somebody, and asked if I could start right away. So I took that opportunity.
Okay. Then you came to Yellowknife.
Yeah.
All right.
I came to Yellowknife. I moved to Yellowknife. I didn't move right away. It was a casual position, but it didn't take long for them to offer me the full-time role.
Well, that's awesome.
I was in that role, I think, for about 3 months until I got offered a new position. That was the recruitment officer.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the the main position was the receptionist, but they had changed my title to client communications coordinator because I helped individuals. They had a database. IND management had a database that you can upload resumes, your information,
Okay.
and so my role was to help. We had a computer in the front for our clients to use, and my role was to help them.
So what org is IND?
I think it was Indigenous Indene or Inuit Indene Management Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that company function was to find people to work in various jobs?
In the mine sites.
Okay.
Oh,
Specifically for mining too?
Yeah,
Okay.
we employed mainly for Diavec at the time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which you knew about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having been there.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first
Keeping it
position was at a caddy. So I had gone to caddy
Oh, okay.
with Tlicho Investment. And then when I started IND, I went to
Then it was
Diavec.
for, okay.
Mhm.
And so did you go to Diavec to see how Diavec was different from Acadie? And did you notice much difference or?
Well, I went to Diavec to fill in for our employee relations officer on site.
Okay.
So when they went off for their holidays, then we would cover for them at
Okay.
site. Yeah.
So it was a little bit of what you had done before with the new job. So like a little bit of site work, but with the new role,
Yes.
new org,
Yes.
new mine.
Yes.
So you sound like you were pretty flexible back in the early days, or you would just do what you needed to do when you needed to do it. And what were you like? I know that you're in recruitment now. So what did you like about recruitment then?
I think the thing that that caught my interest was just helping individuals with their career paths. Just I guess trying to figure out what I wanted in my career path, right? It's I just found it interesting just to be a part of another individual's ability to grow or gain experience in positions that they're capable of being in.
And did you know all of the people that you were helping to place in those roles, or were you meeting new people at that time because it was in Yellowknife instead of in your community?
Both. So I knew that some of the people because we reached out to all the Tlicho communities, and I met new people as well because we've also recruited for the Kitimiut region as well as Yellowknife.
Well, that's very cool. And you would have a really good understanding of, what went on in a mine. I would say 3 months being at a mine site would give you a really good feel for being able to describe what's it like. Yeah. What's it like to work at a mine? I think you could probably answer that pretty easily.
I think so.
Except for the outside bits.
Yeah.
You didn't work outside.
No, I did take a tour, but I didn't work outside.
I've heard it's cold.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone is listening from the southern area, Diavik is in I think technically it's the subarctic, but for most of the world, we could just consider it Arctic. It's in the tundra. It's flat. The wind whips in the winter, and it gets to be minus 40 on the regular, and the wind picks up and it feels like minus 55, minus 60, minus 65. It's properly cold there in winter. When you started, it was in the fall? Your first time in a mine was in the fall or in the
I think it was in the summer. Yeah, I started in the summer, and then it worked out actually the fall. No, sorry, spring into summer. Just before I started school.
Okay. Fall. So school, all right.
Yeah.
So you were there in the midnight sun. And again, for anyone who doesn't have a lived experience of being this far north, the sun shines for all of your waking hours for weeks and weeks and weeks on end.
Yeah.
So, and then in the winter, the opposite.
Yes.
Where it gets dark really early and the sun is very slow to rise. So, and then that first job in recruitment was still very much related to mining as you were placing people in those mining roles. And then how did your career progress from then?
I actually, after leaving IND, I left to return back home. There was just a change in my life at the time that I felt like I needed to return home. So I returned home and worked as a recreation coordinator for first finance. I was finance for, I think, 2 to 3 months, and then transferred to the recreation coordinator for the remainder of the year until I went back to Tlicho again.
Okay.
But it wasn't for a housekeeper position. It was for assistant manager position. So I did the recruitment, the travel,
okay. So admin for the same thing that you also understood very well. So you were bringing it all together. One thing I hear in your story is something that is interesting with mines and communities, and especially in the north, because it is remote. There's a real pull for a home community, and I find when I listen to people's stories, there's often, it was time for me to go, and then it was time for me to come back, and then it was time to go and do something else, and then it was time to come back. So in a lot of people's stories, I hear, almost the pull, the draw, the necessity to go home and maybe, regenerate a little bit or just reconnect with family and everything else. And something that people maybe don't understand is that when we say a community is remote, it means you don't see people unless you live there. So the only time that you can drive out of those communities happened after the mine started building the ice road. Right. So there's only a few weeks a year when you can drive and see friends and everything else. So it is the people in your place, and that's it. Like, you don't go anywhere other than onto the land for short stints, like fishing or, boating or that kind of thing. But it is very isolated. So it's interesting that you say that, because I think that's a pretty common theme for people who work remote, is you can do it for a while and then you need to go and recharge and plug back into your community or your family or all of these different things. So it's interesting that you were able to navigate that fairly easily, and there was a lot of work, and you're like, I can do that, and they're like, yes, you can. Come and do that. Come and do this. Come on in, do this work, do that work. So then you were doing admin for the housekeeping for your Tlicho partnership when you were at Acadie. And how was that compared to your other work?
It was simpler. It was from the same position that we're recruiting for, filling and managing. So it was very it was simpler to when I was doing recruitment for IND, because IND was for multiple positions, mostly operating labor roles. So it was a bit more simplified, I think.
Okay.
And then managing the concession there as well, doing the monthly inventories and what have you for camp, because again, it's a remote camp, so you have to be on top of all the items that
you can't just get it delivered the same day.
No.
It's coming in.
Yes.
If it's not during the ice road season, then it's coming in on flights, which is always, a much bigger deal. Inventory management and all those kinds of things. So when you were looking after that aspect of it, since this is about women's experience in mining, were there a lot of women working at site when you were there, or was it still mostly men?
I think there are more men than women at the time that I was working there, and the men worked out in the field or management. The women worked in the camps and like housekeeping, kitchen,
housekeeping and kitchen,
and men.
Okay.
So it was I think
almost like a really 50s scenario where the women worked inside and the men worked outside.
I think that's how, at the beginning stages, I think that's how it started.
Okay.
But definitely over the years, that's definitely changed, right? You see
Mhm.
a lot more women out in the field and in management as well. So I
Mhm.
think that's
Well, I think in no small part you were directly involved in that, in the recruiting and those things. And
Mhm.
I would think that you would consider women as being capable of doing these things, knowing what you're
Exactly.
capable of.
Yeah.
And now in your role, you are, let you describe your role for a bit. You're not doing exclusively recruiting anymore. You're doing recruiting and some management, and there's a lot that you do that's different now, but it built on the that start that you had in recruiting and admin. So
Mhm.
if you describe what you do now and who you do it for.
I'm the manager of recruitment and benefits
Mhm.
for Tlicho Investment Corporation and group of companies. So we do recruitment for all of our group of companies across the board, owned by Tlicho Investment Corporation. And the majority of those positions are still for the mine sites.
Mhm.
So yeah, we depending on what positions we get, we've had some full-time positions at a caddy, we've got some full-time positions at a DIVEC, and a couple of full-time positions at Gotcha Koi. So
Okay.
those the majority of those positions are equipment and labor, but we also have the seasonal positions that come with the winter road and seasonal positions that to help with labor work during the summer months as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, the mines themselves too need to take advantage of the thawed ground. So
mhm,
I know like a lot of their programming is very specific to summer because that's when the ground is thawed enough to do those things, and all of their environmental monitoring for any of the water monitoring and water quality and all of those different things, those are
mhm,
happening in summer as well because those are significant times environmentally
yeah,
looking at that stuff.
yeah. We also supply labor for the environmental team here that go to the old mine sites,
Okay.
like Tundra, Ray Rock, sites like that. So those would happen, they'll reach out to us like maybe 3 times out of the month of June, and then maybe the same amount of time in July.
When there's action.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the water can actually flow and do the
Yes.
things. Well, that's fascinating as well. So in this in this role that you have now, there's, recruiting that is aimed at getting women into the industry still. Like I know that that's part of the training and development
Mhm.
is to work at, having women be able to access those roles that are in other things. And we've talked before, and I know there was a heavy equipment operator program, and that had women there learning how to do that work that isn't, for the most part, I would say, what percentage do you think of operators would be female, or what would be male? Just
At
best guess.
at each mine site or
Generally
just
at,
in,
let's just say generally at diamond mines, like in the operator, how many women are operating the trucks and the haulers and the excavators and
I could give a guesstimation of possibly 35, 65, maybe 40. I mean, it's
yeah.
still,
It's not half and
it's,
half, but it's
yes,
very different from when you were first starting there.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's not for everyone, right?
Yeah. No job is.
yeah, that's true. It can be tough for some people. I think some women want the chance to experience it
Mhm.
to determine if it is for them. And if they have that family support, then I think they can excel in
Mhm.
it. But if they're, I mean, I guess certain family needs, then some women just can't do the working away from home, right?
Mhm.
So it all depends.
That's the same all over the world. Like
That
that's one
is
of the
true.
things. And I've looked into it, and if people want to have families, it is still the woman who is carrying the baby. And that sort of, I
Mhm.
feel, carries over into professional life and professional time because, the pregnancy and the newborn phases that's mom. Like there's, the dads can be there and they can be as involved as you want, but it's still mom's body. and that really carries over as well. And I think that is something that really impacts careers for women everywhere in the world. Like it's not an exclusive to the north of Canada sort of scenario. In my life, I remember I was the one who had the babies. You were the one who had your babies, and it's as much as we want to say everything is the same and accessible, there are some decisions to be made. There are some realities. Moms are moms, and that's how it goes. And it's really interesting to hear how many jobs you did. Like until we talked about it specifically, I didn't know that you were like, yeah, I'll do that, sure, I'll do that, I'll do this, sure, try that out. So that was very cool. What do you think is the biggest change that you've seen in women in mining in your time in HR and recruitment and training?
I noticed that women don't shy away easily and don't, I guess, refrain from trying new things, as opposed to how it was when I first started out. I mean, I know people that are like, I don't know if I want to try that, and they just didn't.
Yeah, too different, too new, too far away.
Yeah. So now it's, I can try that. I can do that, and they're giving it a try.
And there they are. 35% instead of one woman on the site. Yeah. Well, that's excellent. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And looking at how recruitment happens and everything else, I think you're in a great spot with all of your experience and knowledge of how it goes in the mines and in the communities as well. You mentioned that you work for Tlicho Investment Corporation, and that is a company that is completely 100% Indigenous owned by the Tlicho. And I think, if the last word, it's really cool to me when I see you at work, because I know that you're working for the organization and you're working, on behalf of the people in your communities as well. So you serve a very important in between space where you help people move from community into work. And I see you doing a great job of that. So
thank you.
Thanks so much.
Resourceful Women is a product of the Prospector News. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speaker and speaker alone. Resourceful Women is for educational and entertainment purposes, and nothing in the podcast should be taken as investment advice. Always consult with a licensed personal financial advisor before making any investment purchases.